What is up, everybody? I hope everybody's having a good 2022 so far. We've lost a lot of great people in the celebrity world, so it's not too good, but hopefully it'll get better. I have my first exclusive of the year. I'm super excited about that. I haven't had one of these since October, I think. So I am going to send my invite now to Mr. Adam, and we are going to chat on Shelby Woo and Buffy and figure it out and anything else. Hey, there's Alan Goodman. What up, man? Man, I didn't expect Alan Goodman to show up. That's cool. How you doing, man? It's been a while since I've talked to you. Is everybody having a good splatter right here? Yeah, that's good to see, man. All right, let me let Adam. He should be tuning in. We just tested everything out, so Adam should be joining us any second. Well, good to see you. Well, good to see that you're here. And there is Adam, and he's tuning in. There he is. How you doing, man?
Better and better. How are you, Alex?
I am doing well. Man, I'm excited about this. Thank you so much for taking the time to be a part of this. For those of you who don't know, last year on my profile, I had as a description, stop by and say, I don't know, which is straight from you can't do that on television. And Adam actually commented or sent me a message and just said, I don't know. And I got super excited. So it's awesome to see you in person. See you digitally. So thank you for taking the time to do this.
It's my pleasure. That sounds like something I would do.
Yeah. All right, so we'll talk some Shelby Woo, Figured Out, and Buffy. And if anybody has any questions, I apologize because you'll probably be hearing while I'm talking. Because if I have any fans who send some questions our way, I'm going to keep notes. So because I don't want to miss anybody's comment down below. So if you have questions, pop them in there. But we'll start with Shelby Woo. How did you get involved in playing Shelby Woo? Well, playing in Shelby Woo.
I was a childhood actor. I was a really miserable kid. I didn't like school very much, and my parents were both teachers, so it was very important to them, and it was not important to me. And I kind of, as far back as I could remember, I wanted to be an actor, and I wanted to be a stand-up comic and anything like that. And I started going to the Lee Strasberg Theater Institute on Saturdays. I would go to school on Long Island during the week, and then I'd go to Strasberg on Saturdays. And, oh, this is a dark story. You'll like this one. Like 6th or 7th grade, I was going to school on Long Island, and then I was taking classes at Strasberg in the city on Saturdays. And at some point, there was a field trip on a Saturday for school that we had to take. And all of the students had to get into a coach bus and head from Long Island into New York City for some kind of, I can't remember what it was for. And I had Strasberg acting class at that time. And my parents said to me, you're going to have to choose which one you want to do. And it was tough for me to figure out at the time because one was fun with my friends and the other was something I was passionate about. But I made the choice to go to acting class. And as it turned out, the coach bus that was taking the students on that field trip to the city, the driver of the bus was drunk, and the bus flipped over, and it killed 2 classmates. And one of them, I'm certain that if I was on that bus, I would have been sitting next to him because we were really good friends, and we used to do impressions of Al Pacino all the time. And that's why I was going to Strasberg, to try and be as close to Al Pacino as I could get, because to me that was everything, and that was where he trained. And that incident really kind of solidified for me that I'm just going to keep doing this acting thing and not look back. So when the opportunity to audition for Nickelodeon came up, and they were like, yeah, we want to take you out of school and take you to a theme park in Orlando where you can just live out your dreams, I was just ready to go. I was all packed and just really looking forward to it. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
everything I hated about school was now taken away, and all the good stuff was all together. Because instead of having to go to this, public school, I could just sit and be tutored in the Nickelodeon trailer by a guy who was like, 10 years older than me. And my teachers back in New York would send, basically what they were working on over, and then I would talk about it with my teacher and then write an essay on it and send it back. And it was great. I loved it. I was so happy. And the tram would go by for people taking the Universal Studios tour in Orlando, would go by, and the guy would say, "This is where the kids from Nickelodeon are going to school." We'd pop our heads out of the window and wave at the tram. And then whenever work was done, we would just go out in the theme park and ride rides all day long. My older brother was my guardian, and I couldn't believe this was real.
Man. Oh, it's so envious. Because like you, I hated going to school. So I can totally understand that. Man, that is a dream.
It was interesting because you would think, I know what you're getting at. You're like, oh man, I was a miserable kid. I bet if I was on a TV show, school would be awesome. But no, you can still be a dork and a loser and be on TV and be in school all at the same time. One does not just make everything okay. There was a teacher named Mrs. Viteri who taught Spanish. And this is when I was filming Shelby Woo in Orlando and then going back to New York, going to school when we weren't filming. And I remember she was a Spanish teacher, but she made us all write down what we wanted to do with our lives. And I remember saying, I wanted to be an actor. And she just singled me out in front of everyone and said, well, even if you're doing it now, I'm sure it's not going to work out in the long run. And you need to have a more serious goal than that. I said, okay, then I want to be a rock star. And she said, I don't think you're taking this seriously. And I said, I don't see what this has to do with Spanish class. But she was very insistent about just humiliating me in front of the class for my dreams and making it clear that I needed something serious to fall back on. Now, it turns out that teacher, Mrs. Viteri, had also taught the serial killer Joel Rifkin, who went to the same school as I did a couple years above me. And he said, and you can look this up on YouTube, he said, and quote, "The first homicidal thoughts I ever had were from my high school Spanish teacher." And I knew that was Mrs. Viteri.
Oh, it's so dark. Oh,
so
man.
I asked her in class, I said, is it true that Joel Rifkin said the first homicidal thoughts he ever had were about you? And I got sent to the principal's office.
Oh, man. Oh, okay. First question alone, and I've already was like, okay, I could just listen to stories all day now. Oh, man, this is fantastic. So...
If I could just reiterate, this was all just to let you know how grateful I was to get out of the world that I was in and to be where I was. Like, I just couldn't believe it was real. It was all the adults that worked there. I mean, they wore sneakers, and I thought that was so cool. All the suits wore sneakers and were really friendly and really nice and like talked to you like you were a real person. I was just so happy to be there and so grateful to be pulled out of where I was.
Yeah. And like I had told you earlier about, my wife is doing a play this week, and I have done a lot of plays as well. So we both completely understand the need to, I want to do something. I want to get out of my world. So if people who aren't actors have a harder time grasping that concept sometimes.
Well, it's true for anything. It could be your trains in your basement, whatever it is that, it doesn't have to be, acting or performing.
Reading a book, getting into video games, just you have an escape. Everyone has some kind of an escape, and acting is part of it. Let's see. Sticking with Shelby Woo. Did you have any input on the costumes that your character wore? Or was that just this is something he would do?
I think I think they were much more in tune with probably what kids my age wanted to see than I was. Because
I think it's really cool because when I was a kid, I loved Batman, I loved Superman, I love all the big superheroes, but there were so few Green Lantern and Flash stuff going around, and Noah had both Green Lantern and Flash t-shirt well before Sheldon did on Big Bang Theory. So I was like, I wonder if that was something that was your choice, or if that was just something that somebody had said, "Here, you're going to wear this for this episode"?
No, I'm pretty sure that was 100% Bruce Marshall, who was the costume director there, and he was wildly hip and cool and knew what people wanted much more than I did. That's amazing that you picked that up. That became a thing on Big Bang Theory.
Was there anyone or anything that you drew inspiration for your character of Noah?
Is there anyone? I mean, certainly from Shaggy.
I can see that,
and not the rapper or the guy from Insane Clown Posse, the one from Scooby Doo.
Yes.
I definitely took everything very, very seriously, to answer your question.
Yes.
I don't know what I was pulling from, but I definitely took it too seriously. Like, that was
really,
without a doubt. It was very important to me for things to be very real and very grounded, even when it had no bearing on solving this mystery. I remember I took it very seriously, probably too seriously. Somebody told me, if you watch the bonus footage of Seinfeld, if you watch Michael Richards, he never laughs when everyone breaks. I feel like I was like him. Like, I could have had more fun, and I probably should have. And I'm positive that everyone was trying to help me have more fun, and then I wasn't listening.
Shelby Woo was, I think it was the only show at the time that was filming more on location and less in a studio. What was it like shooting on location in and around Orlando?
It was awesome. We definitely felt like I felt like, because of Alan Goodman and how seriously he took it, I felt like we were doing something different at Nickelodeon. Almost everything there was kind of live studio audience on these traditional sitcom sets, and we were making a movie. And he was hiring directors from New York Undercover and from like cop shows and Homicide and all these real things. He was trying to make it as gritty and as real as possible. And I remember thinking we were very, very cool. We were very doing something different than what was happening there, and I loved that. I loved that a lot. On the flip side to that, it did feel like, because we were on stage 19 and all that was on stage 20, and if you opened up the doors to stage 19, it felt like we were dissecting, an animal. It was science. It was clue related. It was, we don't want to know who the bad guy is. And then you would open the door to stage 20, and it was just like, yeah, you just laughter and just chaos and just mayhem. And I loved how seriously we took what we were doing. But every once in a while, that door would open, and you'd look over and be like, man, they look like they're having a lot of fun over there. And on the same token, I remember Lori Beth Denberg being over there having all that fun and looking at what we were doing and going, man, I really wish I could be a part of what was happening there. Like, they're taking it so seriously and they're moving so specifically. And like, that seems like something awesome.
Yeah, and Lori Beth ended up coming over for an episode of Shelby Woo. I don't know if it was the seasons that you were on or not.
It wasn't, but it was because she wanted to so bad. And I remember seeing she was amazing at it. Yeah.
And incidentally, Alan Goodman is actually watching this right now and had actually just commented that he learned a lot about acting from you. So that's really cool. I had the opportunity to also interview Alan Goodman back in September, so it's really cool that he's here to hear your interview. That's awesome.
I know what Alan, he's being very nice. He's only talking about one moment in specifically that I remember very well. And it was some moment when the three of us were solving a mystery while we were putting on a play. And
yes.
I was dressed as a frog, and we were all dressed as different characters putting on this play. And we would, work on the play and then huddle back to talk about this mystery that was somehow related to the play. And at some point while we were talking about clues, it wasn't written that way, but I think because I would have been like that, I was less concerned with solving this mystery and just really concerned with being a good frog in this play. And so that's how I played the scene. Like, I just got to get back on stage. And I remember Alan coming up to me and saying, wow, I hadn't written it like that at all. But that was amazing to see that's what Noah was super hung up on, as opposed to this actual crime and mystery that everybody is working on together.
Oh, I love it.
That's what he's talking about, and I do think about that sometimes.
And he commented exactly right, so that's just further confirmation. What
he
was
also
it
said
like?
something I saw earlier that I'd like to comment on, because he talked about how
Yes.
maybe that gratefulness that I had in season 1 faded by season 3. It didn't fade, but here's a good metaphor for it. When we started shooting that show, we were a stop on the Nickelodeon tour, meaning if you took the tour, everywhere we worked, from makeup to wardrobe to the sets, had windows, and the tour would walk through and watch you, and they could see wherever you were. And in the beginning,
he was making a joke, he said.
Yeah, I know. I saw. In the beginning, we were just obsessed with the tour and making the tour happy and giving them what they wanted. And sometimes we'd run out from behind the screen and just surprise them. It was just so cool. And by season 3, we just ignored them completely and had no idea they were there. And just,
it became the norm by that point.
You got used to that, yeah.
We had somebody ask, what was it like acting to scripts by Suzanne Collins, who would later go on to write The Hunger Games?
I remember that really specifically. And then she invited, or I ended up going to a Hunger Games premiere where she was. And it was an amazing night to sit back at a Hunger Games premiere and just talk about Shelby Woo for hours. And she is a wildly down-to-earth person who hangs around with all of her old friends from back in the day who remember that. And it meant a lot to her to see me there, and it meant a lot for me to see her there. I think she is definitely a testament to Alan's good taste and writing what you believe.
I love it. This is a question that Alan had mentioned and had a great story. So if anybody wants to go check out Alan's answer to this, you can check it out on my YouTube and on Instagram. But for you, what was it like working with Pat Morita?
I mean, it was a dream come true for me. I was obsessed with comedians, and I was obsessed with comedians and radio from the 40s and 50s, and I knew him as a comedian. And I still believe that there's always the potential for a really good comic to be an amazing dramatic actor. And I think he's the best example of that, because comics are really aware of humanity and life and pain and the duality of everything, and how your saddest moment can also be your funniest moment, and your best moment can also be your worst moment. And he was amazing at that. He really was. He would just, I remember Alan would give him a direction sometimes, and he would listen, and then he'd just look you in the eye, and the only thing he'd say was, watch this. And then he'd go and he'd do whatever. And I stole that from him. I still say that sometimes. I'll go, watch this, even though I haven't quite earned it the way he has. He was amazing. We would shoot all of his scenes in 1 or 2 days. He'd fly in, we'd shoot all of his stuff for an episode or 2 or 3, and then he would go. So those days were I just couldn't wait for those days. They were amazing. Yeah,
I remember Alan had told me that. Speaking of that, how long did it take to shoot a single episode?
I think about a week, 5 days, 6, 7, 8 days. As far as I recall, all of his stuff was truncated into those days, but I think it was a pretty regular schedule.
Okay. I'm going to save that question for the end of the Shelby Woo part. Do you still keep in touch with any of the other actors? With Irene or Preslesa?
It's funny. Irene and I were not as close as we could have been during the filming of it.
Mm-hmm.
And then we became extremely close afterwards.
Really?
We were both living in New York City at the same time, and we became like best friends. And I was shooting a show in Jersey, and she was living in Battery Park City, and we lived together for like a year while I shot that show, because she was doing international investment banking and staying up overnight, and I was working from like 5 a.m. to 5 p.m. and we lived together, and it was the greatest thing. We'd meet together. I'd come home and she'd be waking up, and we'd have like a cigarette together and hang out and talk about everything, and then go off and live these very separate lives. I was such a pretentious artist, and she is everything and its opposite. But art, she approaches very practically. Do you know what I mean? If you know her story and what she's done for herself and what she's achieved, and the fact that I think she was the first Asian woman on the cover of TV Guide. And
yes.
For years, her purpose in life was just, you know, was so much nobler than mine. It was just to let other girls know that wherever they came from, whatever their situation, they can also be exactly where she is. And I was busy worrying about, you know, very silly things. So there was a little disconnect until it ended. And then we were very, very close. Steve Pernick, who played Highline, we've remained friends for many, many years. Josh Harto, who played CJ, we were very close then, and we stayed very close for many years. Preslesa, I see online. She is an author now, and she writes these really great books like A Low Country Bride. I highly recommend. And I think that's there's other people from Nickelodeon, but those are that's the Shelby Woo crew.
Yes.
You know, there's the pilot was called Shelby Wink. Did you hear about that?
Yes. Alan had told me about that. Yes.
And I still talk to Jenna Lee Green sometimes. She played Shelby Wink.
Really?
Yeah, you might know her from Sabrina the Teenage Witch and many other shows and Broadway. She sings and does musicals. She was Shelby Wink.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yes, it's very cool.
Did you keep anything from the show?
I did. I have a framed letter that Alan Goodman wrote as a joke. It's a very offensive graphic on Nickelodeon stationery with the little orange splat and the whole thing. And I had Floam for many years, but if you hold on to Floam, it just kind of dissolves. Turns into nothing. Doesn't really stay around. I have a bunch of the Shelby Woo books that Alan and a bunch of other people wrote. I have some of those. And I think that's about it. Oh, and I have I stole it from the 1515 Broadway building where Nickelodeon and NPR with the Viacom building. It was one of the floor that Nickelodeon was on. I stole the sign for some fucking reason. I don't know why. And I stole it.
Let's see. And someone did have the question, what was it like shooting on film as opposed to shooting on tape?
Yeah, it meant it mattered. It was a bigger deal.
Yes.
Every take was a bigger deal. Going on location was a bigger deal. You know, we couldn't waste time. It was very expensive to mess up a take. And I love to mess up takes, so it was a problem.
We same mindset. Let's see. This one, because this question is it might be more. Actually, you know what? I might save this one for near the end. So, Alan, if you're still around at the end of this, Alan, because I don't think I asked you this one, because I want to get through a couple of other shows. If you're still around at the end, maybe we could invite you in and you could co-answer this question. It's a Shelby Woo question. But the one question I had is, why do you think Shelby Woo isn't as fondly remembered as other Nickelodeon series? Has this not gotten a lot of affection from Viacom in general?
It's a very good question. The only thing I can wonder is if some of the technological stuff doesn't hold up, because technology has moved so fast, and the device of going back to this clacking keyboard, this kind of Commodore 64 style keyboard. I mean, you have to understand, when we were shooting that, was the first time I ever was introduced to the internet. It was my tutor, Mark, who showed me what the internet was, because we had it in the trailer, and I couldn't believe it. Like, I was just so, you know, this was a little ahead of that, but when you look back, it might be hard to grasp how primitive that kind of stuff is. You know what I mean? The pop-ups and the windows and it might move very slowly in a way that you don't see a lot of Doogie Howser reruns either.
Yes, it's true. So the last question I had, and it's very, very specific. I had one guy message me. He had to send me a private message because it was a book of a response, and that's not a complaint by any stretch of the imagination. He said that in '97, the cast of Shelby Woo, the three of you, hosted a Nickelodeon marathon for New Year's Eve. And this person was really excited because he was 6 years old, and this was the first time that he got to stay up late. He got to stay till midnight, and the whole advertising was there was going to be a big surprise at midnight. And right at midnight, his parents walked in, changed the channel to the New York feed, and then changed it back when midnight was there, and then the surprise was over, and he didn't get to see what it was. And do you remember what the surprise was? Yeah, like I said, it's a very specific question, and
no, I don't remember what the surprise was. I remember shooting that a little bit. I remember, we had to work with a stick mostly. Who had a name? His name was Stickley.
Yes.
And most of our stuff, I remember being with that stick, and that being Nickelodeon's idea of a New Year's Eve special. They put us there with a bowl of popcorn and a stick. I don't listen. What's his name? Do you know his name? This person?
Alexis, I believe. Let me double check because he just sent it. Not that. It's same as mine. Alex.
Okay, tell him he didn't miss much. Alex, you didn't miss much. It wasn't. I promise you, whatever was happening on Dick Clark's Rockin' Eve was probably a little better.
I would imagine it was probably an announcement of a new season of some TV show. I don't think
sometimes I was amazed at how little thought and effort they would put into those kind of things.
Yeah. That's kind of what I thought was it was just a big announcement for, hey, we got a new season of this show, because I don't think they had any new shows at that particular time frame. Moving away from Shelby Woo and into Figure It Out, because you were a panelist on a few episodes. How did you get involved from Shelby Woo to Figure It Out?
I guess they asked me. Again, I thought Laurie Beth Denberg was just, I still do, just the greatest talent. I was so just in love with how funny and straight she was. She just reminded me of all those great comedians that I loved growing up. And I probably just wanted to be a part of whatever she was doing, because she was just like the Johnny Carson of that show. She would just sit there and just fire bullets at everyone, and it was just so funny. I just wanted to be a part of that. And there's an actress named Holly Ann Butler who was one of those. Remember, there was like a crew of kids that would run out and do stuff. And she's a huge Broadway star right now, and that was
the Charade Brigade. Yes, is she really?
Yeah, she's in. She was just in the Princess Diana musical, and now she's in. I can't remember the name of it. Come Away Home, is that what it's called? She's a Broadway actress. She's in a ton of stuff, and she's super talented and sings and dances, and that was her start. We keep in touch a little bit.
That's so cool.
Yeah, she was part of that brigade thing. I'm sure I just wanted to be a part of it. I remember being really excited to be there, and then I would make comments, and the audience would go, "Oh!" and then everything would stop, and then they'd reset, and we'd have to shoot it again. I was feeling my sense of humor didn't quite translate. I thought it did. I remember that happening a lot.
It's so. Yeah, you and I would get along. Let's see. What was it like to be? And this, you may have already answered this question with that last comment. What was it like to be you on a TV show and not portraying a character?
I'm still not comfortable with that, which is probably why I came off so hostile, because I just. Oh, Elisa! I still talk to Elisa Reyes sometimes.
I got to speak with her in October. Yeah, she's a very sweet person.
Mm-hmm.
And you did answer this. What was it like filming at Nick Studios? You had the tour that was constantly with her.
Yeah.
I did have somebody here that Figure It Out was not filmed in Florida. It was actually filmed in New York. And I thought, was it filmed when you were doing it in Florida?
Yeah, we did them in Orlando, for sure.
Hey, there's my wife. She said Lori Beth is my idol. And yeah, she's super awesome.
How is Othello? How did rehearsal go?
She's still in rehearsal right now. She's probably not she's obviously not on stage. But yeah, Megan, how's Othello going? Let's see. Where are we at here? Doing Figure It Out. How did you guys interact a lot in between takes, before the show, after the show?
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. I think we were all pretty sarcastic and had fun. Danny Tamborelli, I was a big fan of his. I still am. And his band Jounce, if you've ever heard it, from Pete and Pete.
Yes.
He's the best. And I remember I always wanted to be on that show with him. I don't know if it ever happened. I can't remember. But I was always looking for an excuse to hang out with him or with Lori Beth or any of them. I thought those kids on all that were so cool. I thought Keenan and Josh and all those guys were just like so unbelievably cool. I was so jealous of what they all got to do over there. So any chance to hang out with any of them, I was on it.
That's awesome. And the only reason I'm reading these comments is when I post them later, the comments won't show. But she said they're still having rehearsal. They're just starting Act 2.
Oh, okay.
Let's see. Compared to Shelby Woo, how long did it take to film an episode of Figure It Out? And how many episodes did you film, at least when you were a panelist?
I mean, as far as I could recall, you could do a couple Figure Outs in a day. Because any of those game shows, you'd shoot a couple in a day at least. And Shelby Woo was spread out over 7 to 10 days.
Okay. Let's see. Of the two shows, did you bond with any particular ones that you? Well, I know you still the Shelby Woo cast, but you pretty much answered this too, though. With you still hang out with or would talk with Danny Tamborelli and them. So you pretty much answered that question. I'm going to ignore that.
I also want to add Josh Server into this mix because I thought he was a genius. I was just, Shelby Woo lived a very insular, kind of isolated in our own little bubble, but we get invited to the Kids' Choice Awards, but we wouldn't present. It was that kind of relationship. And I remember going to see Josh Server at the Kids' Choice Awards, and he was sitting in the makeup trailer in between Jim Carrey and Martin Short.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And he was just, they were all peers together.
Yeah.
But we were in the back trying to solve this mystery, in the dust in the corner, trying to just figure out who did it.
So dramatic. We're solving things here. Catching thieves. Nickelodeon, as the network, lets their former actors come back and direct episodes of current shows. Is that something you would ever be interested in doing?
Absolutely. I would love to do that.
Someone asked, did you remember any of the hidden talents from some of the contestants on Figure It Out? Oh,
I remember they would anything that involved cheese. They would love when if you could wrap a talent around cheese, they love to do that. Ryder Strong from Boy Meets World is my favorite example of what you just talked about because he directs a bunch of the Girl Meets Worlds.
Yes, he did.
I can't think of anyone better to do that than him. I think anyone that's been through that process is uniquely adept at helping kids work through that process. And anytime I've guested on Disney or shows like that, it's very interesting coming at it as an adult and sitting at the table read and seeing these kids go through what you used to go through and watching the parents and seeing how everybody handles it and being able to recognize problems and talents early on. I think we're all, those that have grown up in it are uniquely qualified for the gig.
That totally makes sense. All right, we are going to switch from Figure It Out and into Buffy. It's a bit different. Yeah, my wife's so excited. It's very different from because this page is obviously very much Nickelodeon, but it's still 90s and it's about having you on the show. So, how did you get involved in Buffy the Vampire Slayer?
I auditioned for a guest character named Warren that was just supposed to be in one episode. And I remember showing up to the audition, and as soon as I started speaking, there was a reaction, and I knew they had made up their minds immediately that I'd either booked it or not. You can't tell which one it is. You just know you start, very much like American Idol. You sing a note, and they're like, we got it. I said something, whatever the first line was, and they all had some kind of reaction. I knew they had made up their minds in that moment. I just didn't know if it was good or bad. So I went and did that first guest episode as Warren with that Buffy bot. And then I found out months later that they were interested in bringing that character back and putting him in a trio with 2 other characters. And that's all I knew, that had previously been on the show. And then I ended up coming back and staying for a while.
Okay. I actually have to backpedal for a minute because there was 2 questions. One was just given, and the other one I had completely overlooked for Figure It Out. But someone did ask, without having to give a dollar amount, how did the salary for Buffy compare to Shelby Woo?
I'll answer the question, but I just want Lemonade Stand to know, if I was a teacher, if I was anything else, you would never ask me that question. If I did anything else in the world, you would think, oh, I can't ask that. Like, why would I ask that? Like, you would never ask a teacher. So you ever teach a student that, like, did something really big? And you're like, I don't know. A lot of my students have become doctors. Or like, no, I mean, like, something big, like something I've heard of. You're like, yeah, I don't know. Oh, well, I'm sure you're a good teacher. But people can say that to actors. They're completely comfortable. You been in anything I've seen? Well, I've been in some TV. Yeah, I don't watch TV.
Yeah.
The dollar amount. I don't give a fuck. I'll answer the question. But I just do want to point that out. That it's only because we're involved somehow in the arts that people are like, oh, I can fucking ask you whatever you want. I don't give a shit. Yes. A network TV show on Fox or WB will pay more than a cable show such as Nickelodeon, and Nickelodeon doesn't pay residuals, and they didn't pay particularly well. But I was very grateful to have whatever they were offering at the time.
I am loving every bit of this. And there was one, going back to Figure It Out, and then we'll move back to Buffy. I've seen a few times, because I'm a big fan of Nickelodeon, and there's a bunch of Facebook groups and things like that, and inevitably Figure It Out gets brought up a lot of times. And there are some people, such as my wife and myself, who absolutely love Lori Beth Denberg. And then there were some people who were just upset that Lori Beth was on the show because she was so good at guessing people's talents, and then they wouldn't get the grand prize. And there was this kind of a conspiracy theory that she knew what they were and she was just pretending, and then let them not get it.
No.
Can you debunk that?
Yeah, no, absolutely not. No way. I was with her. We were hanging out. She had no idea. She's a smart person. It's not rocket science. Alex, let me ask you something. What is it for you? Because you referenced it is it 90's? Is that what it is? Or is it something more specific?
It's just 90's in general. Now, usually this is all about Nickelodeon most of the time. But
no, I just mean for you. For you personally, like that thing that attracts you to it, that
it was
motivates you. Is it 90's? Is it Nickelodeon? Is it because you loved it then? Are you rediscovering it now? Like, how did this happen?
When I was a kid, I loved Nickelodeon. It was always on. It was the only network that we could just keep on, and it was always on. It was on the background even when I wasn't really paying attention. And I have a lot of memories of my life because they're attached to something that was on TV at the time. That's the way my brain works. Someone will ask me, "Hey, when was your child born?" And ironically, my first thought is, oh, well, the movie Casino Royale came out. That was 2012 or something like that. James Bond, or not James Bond, Nickelodeon is very much of the same mindset. I remember a lot of my childhood because of that network at that time. So that's why I made this.
Beautiful.
Who's interviewing who? It's a co thing, dude. We can quiz each other here. Uh, so back to Buffy. With Warren, was there in I'm sure Joss had some incredible notes on how what kind of a characterization for Warren, but did you have any inspirations that help you bring that character to life?
Inspirations that help. I wish I could answer that more specifically. I like playing bad guys. I've always liked playing bad guys because when I started at Strasbourg, they really, and listen, it's no different than a cult. Like, I realize that now looking back, when you're indoctrinated to something that's so rigid and specific, a certain kind of discipline, I realized that, oh, this is very similar to a cult in terms of you're taught not to look at a good guy or a bad guy. There is none. There's just, because I mean, we've all met awful people. I've yet to meet one that really knows it. The truly bad ones. You know what I mean? Like the barking dogs, the dogs that are barking, don't worry about it. It's the one that's sitting there very still you have to back away from. You learn that when you spend time with dogs. I could empathize with how Warren felt. I could not relate to what he did in order to deal with that, but I could certainly relate to that dynamic that he had with his two friends. You know what I mean? And I was certainly just pulling from everything I saw around me.
And as a viewer, one thing, and I just got to tell you, as a fan, Shelby Woo, whenever they had moved the show and you were not in seasons 3 and 4, it missed you and Preslesa. The other supporting characters, they did fine, but the camaraderie between the three of you was so strong and so palpable. It was so much fun. And then when you were no longer on the show, I was like, man, I miss that. And then to see Warren, and there are so many good villains on Buffy, but it falls in that category of, oh, I love this guy. I love the mayor. He's so evil. I can't stand him. I love it. But then we get to Warren, and then there's no more, oh, I love Warren. It's, oh, Warren. And to me, that's a good villain. You played that so good. Speaking along with that, what was your reaction seeing the progression, the escalation of this character from being a fairly nerdy, not super imposing threat to where he ended up being?
I always wondered about that because it was a very organic shift between all of us. And I guess the question is, I wonder if Alan and Suzanne and everyone at Shelby Woo, if they were just writing to me, if they were allowed to just write to Noah and to me, I wonder if Noah would have turned like that, like what it did, because that's what it felt like they were doing. They were just writing to you, and the writers were very much up there, and we very much got the sense that we were kind of the writers, the trio, come to life. Like they were putting a lot of their interests and loves and things into us. But I can't remember what the question was.
Well, what was your reaction with this progression, where he started to where he ended? What were you thinking as it was going?
I loved it. As an actor, you got to do everything. You got to do comedy, and you got to do drama, and you got to cry, and you got to laugh and scream and do stunts, and there'll never be another role like that again, where you just get to do all of it, because there won't be a show where you can do a musical and you can do like slapstick, and then you can do straight serious drama. You know, it was a very unique situation, and it was certainly very prescient. It certainly predicted a lot of things in terms of incels and Gamergate and a lot of the things that are happening now, and a lot of the shifts and the changes that are happening now. I feel like they were first to shine a light on, and I'm very honored to have been a very small part of that. I remember there was some point when that show was airing on the WB that Bill O'Reilly took a a good 5 minutes out of his factor to just talk about how he couldn't believe trash like this was on television.
Yes.
So,
yes.
We knew we were doing something right.
Yeah.
Because if he didn't like it, well, fuck.
What was the hardest thing to shoot for you, emotionally and physically?
It was probably the Warren death scene that was kind of up on that cross.
Mm-hmm.
Because we were shooting it overnight in, I think, Griffith Park. And at some point we realized that it was very difficult to kind of untie me in between takes, and that it would be just easier if they just kind of left me there. And then at some point in between takes, you start to wonder if anyone remembers that you're still like freezing and shaking. And then you realize, oh, this is working really well. I'm glad they're leaving me up here.
Yeah.
It could be really powerful. That I remember very specifically. And I remember there's a scene where Warren's eye pops out, and to do that, Robert Hall had to make a cast of my face. And if you've never had a cast of your face made, it's an interesting moment happens when they put all the plaster on you and you feel fine. They put a straw in your mouth so you can breathe, and it's all normal until it starts to harden. And then your body instinctually goes, we're suffocating. This is bad. You need to do something. There's a straw there and everything's going to be fine, but your body is trying to tell you that this isn't good and we think we're going to die. So that's always a fun, an interesting couple minutes.
Yes, I can't even imagine. I've heard others who've gone through something similar. With the gruesome death that Warren did, was that also you in just a full body top torso costume, or was that a dummy?
It's pretty clear if you look at the stills from that moment, that it's me, and then it's a stunt guy, because I am not that ripped. And there are often moments on that show where you can see it's me, my arms are out, and I think she says, bored now, and then I go back, and then I slump forward, and suddenly I'm ripped. I'm just chiseled with like abs and just biceps and all of these things that are very clearly not me. You can see in the amusement park scenes where Buffy and Warren are fighting a fist fight, and you can pretty much go back and forth and see when it's me and see when it's not me and see when it's me and see when it's not me.
I have a very dear friend, Kevin, huge fan of Buffy. So when I told him that last year that I might get this opportunity, he got super excited and said, okay, please, when you interview him, don't say anything. Just have him answer a question and then say, bored now, and move on to the next question. And I thought I would if I knew him a little better. But that did make me wonder, how many times have you heard someone just come up and say, bored now?
People love to respond with that on Twitter. I get that a lot on Twitter. What I have noticed over the years, which took a little bit of getting used to, was because of that thing that you described very well, of Warren being that character that you were just comfortable hating. Like, we moved past love to hate, and just with that character we went just towards hate. That people, when they see me in real life, they're very comfortable expressing that to me, and that took a little getting used to. Yeah, I would do I'm from New York. I would do what anybody does from New York when I would respond back in kind. And it was Danny Strong who pulled me aside one time, and he's like, you can't do that. Don't do that. He's like, don't do that. Whatever that was, don't do that. He's like, why don't you try just asking somebody what their favorite episode is? I'm like, oh, that's a good idea. And now I do that, and it goes so much better.
Oh gosh, I mean, that's like, and I can't think of his name, but it's like that. The jerk on Ghostbusters. Yes, it's true. This man has no dick, because everyone hated him, and he was
Can I
saying stories
please
very similar.
see the storage facility? Well, why not? I
Yes,
want to know more
yes,
about what you do here.
yes. Yeah, people hated him, and did from what he shared very similar stories. Uh, I don't want to get into anything controversial. I really don't.
Okay.
So for you, and unless you feel it necessary to bring something up, but I don't want to pry. But what was your experience working on Buffy?
Here's what I can say, since I assume this is what you're asking me about.
What, what was it like for you in general?
Whatever it was like for me,
Mm-hmm.
I can say that all of the stories that have recently come up that
Mm-hmm.
many of the actors from Buffy are telling
Mm-hmm.
now in 2022, 2021 are the exact same stories that I heard
Mm-hmm.
when I was shooting the show. Every one of them. I don't think there was a single one that I heard that wasn't verbatim what I had heard back when we were shooting it.
Yeah.
So I felt obligated to just say that.
Yeah.
Say that all of these people that are stepping up and saying something that's very real for them, that I was there, and this is exactly what I heard. And I think if you're ever in a situation where you have an opportunity to say that, you should.
Mm-hmm.
You saw it and you were there.
Yeah.
So that's all I have to say about that.
Okay. Moving on. We had somebody who said, I believe it was last summer, you had a mini reunion with Tom and Danny.
Yeah.
What was that like?
We do it all the time. We talked today. We're getting together in a week or so. I mean, we've been best friends forever. We bonded over Broadway musicals and our love of similar interests, and it remains a great joy in my life, my relationship with both of those fine gentlemen. And seeing the stuff they're creating today is just so overwhelming and so great. I'm such big fans of theirs and so grateful for that friendship. It really brings me nothing but joy. Makes me smile just to think about them.
That's awesome.
Hey, Justin.
And the trio was fantastic. Was there anyone, and I'm assuming, I mean, you just pretty much answered that, the three of you, or three of you are close. Was there anyone else that you bonded with over the show?
Many. I mean, especially over the years and getting to do conventions and spend time with people. I thought James Marsters was, he still is, he's just so unbelievably talented. What he was doing was so, I couldn't believe it. Like the scenes we would do together, I remember before every take, he would go, dude, what are you doing? And he's like, vampires don't breathe. Okay. All right.
Oh, it's so cool.
Was making music and I was making music. And do you remember Jeff Kober, who played the Rat Demon?
Yes.
That guy, I mean, I've never seen another actor like him. I thought he was just incredible. Every single take was different. And people were just in love with him. He just like charmed everyone he came in contact with. People were just immediately in love with him. And I was one of them. He's just such an incredible presence and actor. I was so grateful for the opportunity to work with that guy. He was just amazing. And he'd give you advice. You didn't even have to ask. He would just give it to you. I love people like that.
That's awesome. Let's see. In your little mini reunions with Tom and Danny, did you ever devise any plans to take down the Slayer? You ever brainstorm, oh, what if we did this? What if these characters did this?
Always. I mean, in our minds, when they were shooting the musical, they were shooting it while we were shooting other episodes. And we like, we couldn't process that we weren't in the musical. It just didn't make any sense to us. We couldn't we thought it was a joke. We're like, at some point, they're going to be like, okay, you guys are a boy band and you all come in together at the end. We're like, exactly. I remember we like pitched stuff to Marty Noxon, like, look, we can sing, we can dance. We're so obsessed with musicals, and they were making one, and we couldn't believe that we weren't a part of that. We just thought it was a mistake.
And Sarah Michelle Gellar, she had posted about the reunions that you guys have. What was it like working with her?
I mean, I don't think I ever, and she's the only person I can say this about, she never dropped a word. She was word perfect for everything. And I do remember her going, you don't forget things like this when you see them because it's so rare. But in the first episode I ever worked on with her was with April, the Buffy bot, who wore a very revealing outfit. And when you're a guest on a show, you just kind of lay low and you stay under the radar. You don't ask for anything. I know it sounds crazy, but you don't ask for water. Because when you're an actor on set and you ask for water, everything stops. And then everyone knows. We're stopped because this person asked for water. And you'd rather just not deal with that. You'd rather just deal with it yourself. And Sarah would stop the set and demand that the actress playing the Buffy bot get a robe or get something warm to wear because she knew that this actress would not tell anyone that she was cold. But Sarah knew, and she's like, we need to keep her warm. And she would bring heaters to her and make sure that this actress who didn't feel comfortable stepping up for herself was taken care of. And that's what her mind was at. And it's as heroic as anything that Buffy did, I think.
That's beautiful. My wife had a question that she texted me. Let me see what she asked. Ask him who he most enjoyed working with on Buffy and why.
I mean, I loved working with James. I loved working with Jeff. I was bummed I never got to work with Tony Head. And we got to spend some time together in London once. And I love his music. I love him as a person. I was very upset that Warren and Tony Head never got to work together. I think they should do a Rocky Horror Picture Show and get everyone from Buffy.
Oh yes.
To do different
roles.
Oh
man, you're right up my wife's alley on that one. Somebody did say, hey, you didn't sing, but you did get to frolic through the woods in togas. So there's something.
I remember they couldn't get the horse to stop eating the grass. It wasn't a real unicorn. It was just a horse that they put a thing on. And they couldn't get the horse to stop eating the grass and to get its head up. That's all I remember from that bit.
We did have someone just ask, did you expect to be brought back in season 7 for a Willow-centric episode? And what was that toga scene with the trio shot at? Was it shot at the same time?
I don't remember. I don't remember. I do remember the Willow-centric episode. I remember studying Allison Hannigan, and I remember giving her tapes of stuff I had done so she could study me. I remember her performance being amazing and those tears that she pulled. I loved playing dead Warren. I loved when Warren came back as the first and played. I just loved that. I loved getting to play another character in Warren's body, and I remember I would stand on my tiptoes and let my body lean forward whenever we shot stuff like that, and it looked pretty interesting. I like that a lot.
Michelle Trachtenberg was in both Buffy and Nickelodeon. She was on Pete and Pete, and she was on Figure Out a couple of times. Did you know her from Nickelodeon days before she was in Buffy?
I did. I thought she was incredible, and everyone from Nickelodeon went to the Harriet the Spy premiere in New York City. Yes. So I remember that and being very excited to see her in that and thinking she was so amazing and having no idea. Well, actually, having an idea that she would grow up to be just as talented.
And it's a bit of a nerd question, but
go ahead.
In Buffy, the trio argued over who was the best James Bond. And then also in Mystery Files of Shelby Woo, Noah was impersonating Sean Connery as James Bond at one point. Did you ever enjoy James Bond movies?
I did, and I really hope Idris Elba gets to play Bond. I would like that very much.
Who's your favorite actor that you've seen so far play Bond? Nerd question. Nerd question. Because that's me.
I'll say Sean Connery. Hey, Chris.
And I only have two more questions. And Alan Goodman, are you still here? I only have two more questions, and they're not necessarily TV. Well, not any one show specific, but if you could portray any character from TV or film, who would you want to be?
I want to play Lenny Bruce. I always wanted to play Lenny Bruce. Yeah. But I think it's important I play Michael Cohen at some point really soon.
Okay.
I think that'll happen. I think it's possible. All
right. Alan, I'm going to ask one more question, and do you mind jumping in for just a second to answer a fan question about Shelby Woo? So the last question that I have for you is, if you could go back and give your younger self advice, what advice would you give?
Oh, have more fun. Just have more fun. Relax. Don't take it all so seriously. You know, there's joy. If you take acting classes very seriously, if you take a lot of things very seriously, I think you're encouraged to suffer, because we're taught or led to believe that somehow suffering is righteous, and it can be, but it's not necessary. And there is joy that's just as important. And I think there's joy in just having your friends around, you know? Yes. And just having Preslesa and Irene and Noah, like, and your best friends, and this guy that runs the burger joint, and Andrew and Jonathan and Warren, and they're your best friends, and that should just be enough. And in each of these little trios that we're talking about, they're reaching for something bigger and larger, and we love watching that struggle and how they fail at being the world's greatest detective or at world domination. How they fail at that is who they really are, and why we love them. Because whatever they land at, that's us. That's us right there going, oh, look at that. Yeah, I did think it was going to be, but it's really just that. And that's okay. And you know why it's okay? Because you have your best friends around. And that should be enough. Do you know what I mean? And I feel like that's what Pat Morita's character was always trying to say. And I feel like that's what even the Rack Demon was trying to tell Warren. And I will continue to serve by playing characters who just don't get it.
All right. Alan did say that he's willing to jump in for just a second to answer this fan question. So let me do this if I can. Alan, I'm going to send you an invite. And if you've got a minute, you can join. And, oh, man, this is a bit of a Shelby Woo. I was perfectly ready to ask you this question. And then Alan showed up. What up, man?
There I am.
It's good to see you again.
Hello. Adam, you're gorgeous. I love you.
So I did have one fan ask. And
the only time I get to interact with Adam is I annoy him with responses to his tweets from time to time.
Yeah, if anybody does not follow Adam on Twitter, go follow him on Twitter, because
Absolute must.
Because it's hilarious, and he also has some really good inspirational things too, things that most people wouldn't think of. So I think your Twitter is the only one that I really follow every single time. But we did have one fan, and by fan I mean a fan of the two of you, ask, why did Shelby Woo end?
I think we said all we needed to say. No, it was it was a tricky time. First of all, to clear up one thing, typically a show like that would shoot an episode in 5 days. We did 2 episodes in 9 days. We actually shot 2 episodes at a time, which was murder on the continuity people and the wardrobe people. But the reason we shot 2 episodes at a time was specifically because of Pat Morita. There was no way to afford him to keep him around day after day after day. So we'd fly him in from Vegas or Hawaii, wherever he was living at the time. 2 days, we'd shoot out all of his scenes for 2 episodes, and then we'd send him packing again. So that's how we fell into that rhythm. And it actually ended up being more economical. We actually saved a day per episode by shooting that way, because we were able to do 2 shows in 9 days instead of 1 show in 5 days. But in terms of why it ended, I'm going to be a little careful about what I say, but we were a very, very prominent show shooting in Orlando at the time, specifically because we were so much on location. If we had shot everything on the stage, we could have flown under the radar, but we were very visible, and our success was they moved the show a lot, and we improved the time slot of every slot they put us in. We had the highest rated premiere in SNCC at the time when we premiered. So the show always did well, but it moved around a lot. And that made it sometimes difficult for the audience to stick with it. And then the fact that we were so prominent and got the cover of TV Guide and all of this other stuff, suddenly we became a target for some of the labor unions that Nickelodeon didn't recognize on its productions. You read between the lines, is all I'll say. But we were struck. We were in the middle of shooting episodes 7 and 8 of, because we did 2 at a time. So we were in the middle of shooting episodes 7 and 8 of that 3rd season when we had to shut down. When we put the thing back together again up in Canada about 9-10 months later, we actually finished, the old cast came back up to Montreal, and we finished those 2 episodes. But in the intervening 9 or 10 months, they chose to play the same 6 new episodes over and over and over and over and over. Every 6 weeks, you could see the same episode again. And that was right when ABC had launched the Disney Sunday Movie, which premiered with a new version of Cinderella. So we were just fucking dead. We just got killed because of that. The show never recovered its momentum. And, and I love my cast from Montreal, and I love my cast from Orlando, and I just learned so much making that show and had such a great time. And, Adam's like another son to me. I've always really, really admired his talent, and very much love him as a human being. So it's great to see you, and I follow your career, and I annoy you whenever I can. I feel as though that's a special privilege.
You got to understand, up until I met Alan Goodman, adults were the enemy. And most of what's happened in my life is your fault, Alan, because I based my life on his. Everything he was doing with music and creating and having a kid, and I was just like, oh, look at that, and he's wearing sneakers. He's so cool. Like, I want to be just like him. And that you can do that. As far as I was concerned, Alan created MTV. Alan and Albie Hack and all these guys, they created it. And now they were given the opportunity to just express themselves and do the kind of shows that they wanted to do. And I was like, if everything works out for me, I'll be just like Alan Goodman.
Well, thank goodness you weren't, because you were just like you. And, you know, that's what we wanted. So
I remember Alan told me one thing. We worked on one cartoon together after Shelby Woo, and I did a voice for him. And I saw the finished product, which was awesome. And he sped my voice up by 20% because he said it made me 20% funnier. And you know
no.
He's right.
6.5%.
6.5%.
We sped you up 6.5%. You were hysterically funny in the role, and you deliver lines very quickly anyway.
I did.
But I just wanted like a little extra something. This was actually a pilot for Nickelodeon that didn't go, but every once in a while I think about trying to do something with it again, because I loved that cartoon. I did it with Manny Galan, who was a brilliant animator at Nickelodeon and remains a great friend. But I just wanted a little extra something. So in the sound edit, which you do before you do the animation, you know, you record the whole thing first and then animate to the voices. I told the engineer, you know, just speeding them up like 6.5%. And we listened to it and we just immediately started laughing. But, you know, you can speed up the voice, but not change the pitch. So we kept your voice sounding like you, but made you just a little bit faster. And you were 6.5% funnier.
But it traumatized me because I do everything in my life now 6.5% times faster in the hopes that it'll bring me greatness.
You know, I don't want to bogart this interview because, Adam, you're doing a great job. But I just wanted to, I remember we talked about, you asked me that same question, did I save anything from any of the shows?
Yes.
And I told you about Babyhead.
Yes, you did.
Ferguson's character on Clarissa, we needed to have, in one of the fantasy sequences, we needed his head with a baby's body. And it was before you could do all those digital effects. So we actually cut out the back of a baby carriage, and he stuck his head through the hole. And we had the baby body in the carriage, which meant there was a baby head floating around that came off that doll. That baby head wound up in the writer's room and wound up on a Japanese toy robot that I had there. And this is Babyhead.
Oh, wow.
It is the ugliest baby doll I've ever seen in my life on a robot, and it is really, really frightening. And it no longer moves. It used to roll around the room and the lights would light up and all of that stuff. And so anyway, I just wanted to, since you asked about it, I thought I'd share Babyhead with you. But anyway, I think I should go and you should wrap up with Adam because he's more interesting.
Thank you, Alan. I appreciate you taking time.
Everybody likes actors better.
That's so scary, somebody commented. Thank you, Alan. I truly appreciate it.
Good to see you guys. Adam, I love you. Take care.
All right. And for Mr. Adam, just double checking real fast here. I believe we've answered everything. Adam, for anybody who wants to follow you, where can they follow you at? I know that said you're on Twitter. What is your Twitter?
Oh, it's at Adam Busch, Busch.
All right. That is all that I had, guys. Adam, again, thank you so much for taking the time and for putting up with my berating of messages for the past few months. I apologize for all that. But
it's my pleasure. I'm so glad you brought Alan and I together. It's the best. And I really appreciate your passion for this, for anything specifically that brings you joy, and your fearlessness towards supporting it and spreading it. Don't worry about what anybody says. Keep doing whatever you're doing, and I promise you greatness will follow.
I truly appreciate it. Everybody go follow Adam on Twitter. It's great stuff. Thank you to everybody who submitted questions. Thank you both for being here. And hopefully we'll get to chat sometime again.
Anytime.
Bye, guys.